Hi everyone, I'm Quadra, and this is the Blades of Gixa video update number 5. For those of you coming to this fresh, the Blades of Gixa is a mega dungeon that I made for the Dungeon 23 challenge. So this is a big, mostly underground setting for playing tabletop RPGs like Dungeons & Dragons or Shadow Dark or Old School Essentials, or whatever your favorite one is. The challenge was to make a mega dungeon over the course of a year by drawing one room every day. Each month forms a floor, and so at the end you have a huge subterranean environment with 365 areas spread across 12 floors, one for each month. Here, let's jump ahead to one of the later months real quick. So here it's maybe a little easier to see. So I start at the first of the month, and then I work my way through, drawing one area at a time. I sort of got rid of the one day is one room thing. Like, I have a whole city here, for instance. So now when I initially drew this thing, each page kind of wound up looking like this, where the shape of the level takes the shape of the month, and I drew everything and I keyed everything by writing my keys directly into the drawings themselves. So the whole thing is very integrated. There's still a lot more information that you're going to want as the person running this setting. So now I'm going back through the entire dungeon and fleshing out each of these levels, which results in this kind of horror vacui look, where you have your dungeon and it not only has keying integrated into it, but it's also surrounded by information, lore, stat blocks, all kinds of stuff. As I covered in a previous video, I also created an overworld spread. There's more information about the overworld and there's more spreads that I'm making, but for this video, we've got our completed overworld, we've got our completed first level, and now we've got our completed second level, which is the subject of this video. Now just a quick note about how you can get your hands on this. I ran a successful Kickstarter for the Blades of Gixa, which is funding its publication as both a book and as a set of poster-sized art prints. The Kickstarter's over, but you can still pre-order the book and the posters at the pre-order store at paradiso.oo/Gixa. Both book and posters will also come with PDFs, and also an amazing soundtrack with tracks for every floor, made by the incredibly talented Galen Drew, who also made a soundtrack for my previous project, Warped Beyond Recognition. The music you're hearing in the background right now is actually the work-in-progress track for this level. Okay, so what is this level? Well, in the last couple of videos, I talked about the surface and some of the factions that exist there, the ancient bathhouse that exists under that town, which has long been in a state of disrepair, and which houses an entire society of kobolds. And down underneath that are the crypts. So the Crypts of Dorukh are narrow, stone-paved corridors, dripping with condensation, smelling of wet stone and faint rot, home to the mad and the dead. So that already gives you an idea of what the vibe is down here. A little extra background: the creation and use of the blades destabilized the world's boundary between life and death, giving rise to corporeal undead and necromancy. In places such as this, where many are interred and old magics linger, the dead are especially restless. Now over on the left here we have a history of this level, which is also a D12 table. This history is also covered on the history spread. If you go to the Elvish Crypts, level 2, and you look at all of the entries reading across to the Crypts of Dorukh, which is what it's called now, you get kind of an overview of what happened in these crypts. But this goes into a little more detail, which might be a little more relevant when you're actually in this location. So let's say a player finds a book somewhere that has information about the history of the crypts. You can take a d12 and roll on this to pick one of these entries and give the player some information based on what you see there. So this history covers basically back in the day when this area was populated by kobolds and dredge orcs who were enslaved by a cave elf sorcerer named Zurzan Nefri, who made them dig out these tunnels and who experimented on them. Zurzan's experiments developed blood magic, sacrificial rituals, with which he hoped to ascend to the realm of the gods, the sky, which is actually part of this dungeon. Eventually he was defeated by Gixa and Dorukh and their friends, who would in time become revered as goddesses. So Dorukh is the goddess of sorrow and joy. There's a fountain of her here, but she was once a person, an elf, who adventured through this dungeon. So the kobolds, with their newfound freedom, helped to build the level above, the baths, the bathhouse, which brought a lot of prosperity to them and to the people of Baintok above. That all kind of goes pear-shaped eventually, but that's more covered in the previous video and in some of the information up here. So let's just get into some of the interesting features of this level. So each level has its own encounter tables, usually more than one. And up here we can see we have crypt encounters and we have labyrinth of skulls encounters. So crypt encounters are basically everywhere except for this area, and then the labyrinth of skulls encounters are for this area. So in most systems, there's random encounters that can happen while players are exploring to kind of mix things up and to put pressure on them. And it's often that there's like a 1 in 6 chance every 10 minutes or 20 minutes that you have an encounter, and then if you do, you roll on the encounter table to figure out what the encounter is. So let's do that. Actually, this is a good time to mention Dice Nest, which is a company that makes pretty unusual and cool dice. They reached out to me and offered to send me some, so I said, sure, why not? And the set they sent came in this lovely carrying case. And here you go, full set. Now, these are pretty simple looking and unassuming, but the cool thing about them is they're obsidian, and they have a bunch of other dice that are agate and other stones, and they all look great, but they're also denser than the plastic dice you usually use, and so they have like a heft to them that's just nice and satisfying. When they sent me these dice, they also sent me a referral link, which you can see here, and they were nice enough to send a discount code for my viewers, in case cool stone dice are your jam. They also have glass dice and resin dice and a whole bunch of other stuff. So yeah, pretty cool. Dice Nest, that's what I'm rolling in this video. Alright. 2. So we've got D4 Skeletal Templars. So the stats for the creatures listed here, we've got skeletons, which can have a little variety to them. When you get a skeleton, you can roll a D6, and 1 to 3 is normal, but if you get 4, it's headless, which gives it a penalty to attacks. 5, it has extra arms, so it has +1 attack, and on 6 it has a limp, so it moves more slowly. So let's roll 4, headless. Cool, that's fun. So you can roll that for all the skeletons if you want to, or you can just be like, they're all normal, who cares? So yeah, what we have on our encounter table here, we've got a bunch of skeletons. We've got some skeletal templars, which are skeletons but tougher, but they also wear amulets that are worth some money. We've got giant rats, we've got outlaws, we've got kobold scouts, and then 6, we have 2 of the above interacting. So you'd roll on here twice, so 3, 6, we'd roll again, 2. 3 and 2. So we've got giant rats and skeletal templars. So maybe we've got a bunch of giant rats, scurrying down the hall, and a bunch of skeletal templars are trying to kill them because they try to kill everything. So say you roll that up, your players are, down the hall, and they hear this commotion, this squeaking and smashing and all these sounds, and they peek around the corner and they see these skeletons trying to kill a bunch of rats that are panicked and trying to get away. Makes the dungeon feel a little more alive. So actually, all of my encounter tables have this. If you roll a 6, in the Labyrinth of Skulls, we double the encounter chance, so you're more likely to run into trouble here. And you can encounter acid slimes, skeletons, Grobius, this big frog, or the skeletal minotaur itself, which is listed down here. It is a fearsome foe. You are going to want to run away if you encounter it. It is actually a major figure from the history of this place. There's also Grobius, this frog aesthete, who lives in this little kind of apartment in the dungeon and collects interesting odds and ends. He's got a whole bunch of information about him because he too is actually a figure from the history of this place. The thing is, he doesn't know it. He lived long ago, he was close with Gixa and Dorukh and the others, and performed many great deeds with them. But because of an accident, he was gifted or cursed with immortality, and he would go on influencing the world and living for too long. So long that he forgot who he was in that life, and would take on different identities over the centuries, which he would then forget and take new identities. So he's lived a very strange life, and some of those memories still linger in the back of his mind, but if you want to get to them, you'll need to find ways to sort of stir them up. So Grobius has an interesting collection of treasures and paintings depicting events from times past, and he has a strong interest in collecting more items from antiquity, which can help jar some of these long-lost memories. So we've got a few other weirdos in this dungeon. All the way over here in 221, we have Perenthal. He is an undead kobold who is actually peaceful. He's a chromomancer, meaning he does alchemy to create pigments. And as with most undead creatures, he is fixated on a single thing. Fortunately, it's not violence. He is focused on crafting and cataloging pigments. That's just his thing. He also has a secret bedroom with some neat stuff in it. Other weirdos, Magrab the Mad. So we've got Magrab the Mad's lab over here, where there's a bloody surgical table, there's a pile of dismembered bodies, there's shelves of herbs and potions and bone saws and stuff. He keeps all these doors locked. He's got various books on esoteric subjects, and he can also toggle one of the gates over here. So what's his deal? Well, we've got some stats down here. He's this kind of grotesque chimera. He's a cave elf, but he has a compound right eye. He's got fangs. He's got the left arm of a bear. He's got a serpent's lower body. It's weird. He's completely out of his mind. But he is knowledgeable about anatomy, healing, and potions, if you can get that out of him. But what he really wants is bodies. Interesting bodies, powerful bodies, that he can feed to the black pomegranate tree. Now this tree has black bark and leaves and fruit, and it grows in darkness on the bodies of slain creatures. And this actually has a connection to some stuff we'll see later, because it's created by grafting a regular pomegranate cutting to a branch of the nightwood, which we can see right here, this huge black tree. Now, what's the deal with black pomegranates? Well, their skin and flesh is jet black. When eaten, they regenerate a lost body part, or heal a major wound in 1 week, by growing the flesh of a creature consumed by the tree out of the wound. So this confers some qualities of the creature to the eater, and if the creature had more hit dice than the eater must save to control the new body part. The eater detects as undead. This can cause problems. If the eater was not wounded, this produces a large teratoma of foreign flesh instead. So you'll basically have this big tumor, this big growth on you, full of the flesh of some creature. And actually, this little table here. So, let's say we were fighting the Minotaur and it ripped your left arm off, and you've learned from Magrab that the black pomegranates can regrow limbs. Great, let's go for it. You eat one, and we roll a 9. That's going to be, oh no, a giant carp. So you're going to have like a big old fin coming off the side of your body. Not necessarily that useful, but pretty funny. If we rolled something else, 6. What do we have? Mana leech. Oh, that's fun. Okay, so mana leeches are one of the creatures in here. Less than 1 hit die, no AC. They can only swim. They're a leech. They're a nasty, slimy critter. But as a mana leech, they drain and store magical energy. This can be a curse, it can be a spell casting, whatever, and they'll store it for a week while digesting it. And if you kill it, it'll release that stored magic, kind of like a gross scroll. So the thing with mana leeches that's kind of fun is you can use them literally like a scroll. You can also use them to suck a curse out of somebody. Now, they're only going to bite onto flesh, right? So if you have a spell cast on someone or you have a curse, you can stick a mana leech on you and it'll suck that curse out of you. So the mana leeches can actually be quite useful. So in this case, you lost an arm and then you rolled a 6, which is mana leech. So you're going to have this big slimy leech type thing coming out of your shoulder. And yeah, it's going to be really gross. But maybe you could use it, right? Maybe it's kind of like an arm, and then at the end of it is a little mouth, and you can use it like a mana leech, and you can use it to suck magic out of something and store it. Now, it's up to you as a DM, like, can they then release that magic? Can they cast it? Or maybe it's just stored in their arm, and they could cast it if they cut their arm off. That's up to you. Okay, so that's what that is. So Korgga, speaking of mana leeches, is one of the other weirdos here. She kind of tends to the mana leeches, and she's always trying to feed them new spells and curses. She can sell you mana leeches, but she would prefer to sell mana leech services and, like, remove curses from people. She's also friends with, and I think I wrote, friend and sometime lover of Kredig, and hasn't seen him in a week. Kredig is a kobold that lives in this cave system over here, and he's involved in the sopor trade, which is this drug that is brought up from deeper in the dungeon, and he's sort of a way station in the sopor trade route. He collects it from deeper in the dungeon, brings it up to his lair, stores it, and then when given certain signals, he brings it to this pool of water and puts it in a bucket, which then gets lifted up through this well shaft to the old well, where his contacts in the Admiralty Evidence Bureau take the drug and bring it back to their headquarters and then distribute it from there. So it's a whole thing. Kredig has been missing for a while. His mom a Ka, who is one of the elders of the Kobold tent village, Makruk, wants him to come back home and stop dealing drugs. And Korgga, his friend and on-again, off-again girlfriend, is worried about him. She hasn't seen him in a week. We'll find out where he is in the next video. Some other interesting stuff here. We have the Headless Scholar. So it's behind this locked door. It's this statue of a Headless Scholar amidst a room full of broken desks and shelves. The statue is inlaid with jade. And so you see that and you're like, well, that's weird. Where's his head? Go into the next room, and the next room is the Archive of Skulls. So we've got rows of shelves filled with the skulls of various sapient species. Each one is the scholar of an esoteric subject, and each skull is inlaid with a jade control glyph. The skulls are labeled in Govdach, which is the old tongue of the elves. So each of these skull scholars is an expert in some esoteric subject and has this control glyph inlaid into their skull. And if you take one of those skulls and you put it on the Headless Scholar statue, it can speak about the subject that it knows about. You can question it, all this stuff. Each skull scholar is either here to teach, resigned to its fate, wants reanimation, or wants death. So these guys might have a bunch of good information for you, but they might also want to bargain with you a little bit. Or maybe they want you to find one of those headless skeletons and bring it to them and pop their head on there. Or maybe you could feed one of them a black pomegranate and regrow some amount of body. It's kind of horrible to think about, but hey, anything can happen. Your players will find something interesting to do with them, I'm sure. So here you can see esoteric subject has this little symbol next to it. It's like 3 boxes stacked on top of each other. And that means there's a table. Esoteric subject is a table that you can roll on. There's going to be another spread, or maybe 2 even, in the back of the book that are going to have a bunch of tables. So one of them will be esoteric subjects, one of them will be pigments, potions, herbs. There'll also be a special treasure table. There's all kinds of stuff. Okay, here we have a chapel, a Gixa Dorukhi chapel, so it's dedicated to both Gixa and Dorukh, and it has these tapestries on the walls that depict them and kind of how the kobolds came to see them. One tapestry shows Gixa helping a baby kobold hatch as Dorukh holds the mother's hand, and then the other tapestry shows Dorukh comforting mourners as Gixa lays an old kobold to rest, right? So Gixa is seen as this goddess of life and death, and her sister, Dorukh, is seen as this goddess of sorrow and joy. And so they kind of work together, where Gixa is more the doer, the one who makes things happen and facilitates life and death, and Dorukh is more of the empathic one. She's someone who facilitates mourning and celebration and is more kind of connected to people than the fundamental forces of life and death. So as I mentioned, while they are largely seen as these ancient goddesses, they were actual people at one point, and this can kind of help give a sense of what their personalities were like. Okay, what else is in here? Okay, we've got this little puzzle of gates and switches that open and close them. So we've got this secret door here that leads to this area, and this secret door is a fresco. It's painted, a fresco of a black ziggurat in mist with undead ogres carrying black stones. It's actually a door, secretly. If you open it, you can enter this hallway, the loose tile hall, which is referenced down here. It's trapped, basically. And you can go into this crypt, and then there's a second crypt, and then if you go underneath this, there's a secret passage that leads to some more traps, some more chambers, and then this goes down to the next level, where we have the real crypt of Haza, who is one of the major characters in the history. Similar to this fresco and secret door, we have another fresco over here, also painted on a secret door, right? So once people find one of these, and then they see the other one, they'll have some idea of, I think I know what this is. So this fresco is different. It's a painting of a feast, 9 cave elf nobles on each side of a long table, with Nazagh at the far end presiding. Nazagh is another character from the history of this place, actually a character who's very closely connected to Haza. They converse over heaping plates, except for those of Nazagh, the 3rd one on the left, and the 8th one on the right, whose plates are modest. This is actually a stone door, and you just need a lot of strength to move it. It's not locked. Inside here, we have a Govdach inscription. Govdach, once again, is the old elven tongue. Traitors all, and so condemned. Only the disciplined earn passage to the beyond. So this chamber has 9 sarcophagi on the north and south walls, and most of them have mort snakes in them, which are nasty little creatures. They have necrotic bites, and their presence binds the dead, which prevents them from passing on into an afterlife. So all of the bodies that have these mort snakes, the souls of those elves are trapped in their bodies. But there's 2 that don't have that, the 3rd on the left and the 8th on the right, which matches the nobles who have modest portions, and each of them have on their person half of the key to the door out of this area. Simple little puzzle. Past here, we have an open pit, this room off to the side with 50 skeletons who have gold amulets with this balancing scales symbol, which is the symbol of Nazagh. All these skeletons are facing south, they have these amulets, and they're apparently inert, like you can walk among them and they won't do anything. Once you get past this open pit, you can get to this door, open that up, and then you're in this chamber, which has a bunch more of these frescoes on the walls that depict different things that Nazagh did in her life. And then you get to this chamber, which has another locked door, and there's a whole puzzle about that, which is down here. And basically, you'll need to figure out what her philosophy in life was based on what you see here to get through. And if you try and just brute force it, you can, but then all these guys are going to wake up. So, watch out. Then once you're in here, if your pilgrimage is just, you can proceed and earn the master's tools. And basically, there are 3 trials, the Gauntlet trial, the Hound trial, and the Sword trial, which are known as the 3 tools of Nazagh Gurkar. And the Gauntlet and the Sword are these sort of legendary artifacts, and the Hound is like her loyal companion who lives on in undeath. And if you can bond it to you, then it will follow you wherever you go. So the way that all of these areas work, you can see that they're labeled A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. All of that is covered here. So you can see Burial Complex of Nazagh Gurkar, A through H, and then each area is labeled with how it works, basically. And the biggest part of that is the description of the tile chamber, which is up here, and the puzzle that you have to solve to get through here without waking these guys up. So that's pretty much everything. I mean, there's a bunch more stuff in here. There's some cave elves over here. There's a flooded statuary. There's a crypt. There's all these little burial apses. There's a bunch of stuff to find. But yeah, hopefully this gives you an idea of what this level is about. I've been working on a few of the upcoming levels, so I hope to get some videos out about those soon. So once again, if this interests you and you would like to have this as a book and or beautiful poster-sized art prints, you should go to paradiso.oo/Gixa. You can pre-order it now. There's still a lot of work to do. It'll be a while before everything ships, but I'm working on it. You can pre-order it there. It'll also be available on my store at paradiso.works once it's released. So I want to thank everyone who supported this project and all of the Paradiso members who support this project and all of the other projects that I do, from these videos to mothership modules to crafting projects to all kinds of stuff. I would not be able to do all this without you. So thank you so much. If you'd like to join them and become a member yourself, you can go to paradiso.zone, which is kind of the hub for the stuff that I make, and there you can get the free newsletter, and you can also sign up for a membership, which also gets you a bunch of cool rewards, like pretty much all the things that I make. And at higher levels, you also get access to like pre-release versions of things. Yeah, check it out. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.